You are listening to the Mary Jane Society podcast, where you will meet entrepreneurs, cultivators, scientists, doctors, and inventors in the cannabis industry.
I'm your host, Pam Schmiel, marketer and publicist in the cannabis industry. I can be reached at pam@themaryjanesociety.com if you'd like to explore working with me. Today, our guest is Tara Misu, a New Jersey native who's been in the cannabis industry for about 15 years. She's the owner of the edibles company Blazin Bakery, known for its brownie mix with the right formulation for making do-it-yourself pot brownies. The company sells at Spencer gift stores across the country. Tara has studied extraction science in California and Colorado and is about to open the doors to her manufacturing facility, Alchemy Green, so that she can continue to innovate with cannabis edibles. She's raising funds on MainVest, an investment crowdfunding site where regular people can get an equity stake in her cannabis manufacturing company, Alchemy Green. Learn more about this and Tara's big plans for the New Jersey market. Let's meet Tara.
Thank you so much for having me, Pam. I'm very excited to be here. Blazin Bakery is my primary company. I founded 15 years ago. The brief backstory is my boyfriend got pancreatitis. He couldn't drink anymore. And us being in our 20s, we were still looking at something to do recreationally. So we got a little bit more creative with cannabis. I did some extractions, some pot brownies. They turned out really well. His friends asked, and my friends and our friends' friends. And I said, well, I want to be a, legacy market brownie dealer, but but let me build the mousetrap so people could do this at home. And that's what I did. I created an optimized brownie mix. It got sold in Spencer Gifts, and it's been in over 2,000 stores nationally. Also, it sells in US and Australia and Canada. So that was a really exciting kickoff to my journey. And since then, 15 years of advocacy and on a national level, going around conferences speaking, but particularly in my home state. When 2019 came around, Governor Murphy pledged to legalize cannabis in 100 days. It took 4 years, but I was there for all of them. I was writing legislation. I created the micro license. I helped run NJCBA, the Cannabis Business Association. It's our state's largest cannabis trade organization. So I've been very, very actively involved. And the whole time having this parallel goal of getting a license in New Jersey to take this ancillary company, Blazin Bakery, and shift it over to be a plant-touching product line, licensed New Jersey cannabis product manufacturer. So that's where Green Alchemy comes in. That is, I really wish I had merged I wish I called it like Blazin Brands or something, because now I'm promoting two different tracks. So I'm constantly saying like Green Alchemy, maker of Blazin Bakery products, but it's my manufacturing license. So that is what the state has approved me on. And I have now been approved through the licensing process up until I'm working with my investigator now to actually get the doors open. So it's in South River, which is in my hometown, which I'd love to talk more about that if you want. And it's going really well. We're just finishing up the build out. The town's been very supportive. The landlord's great. It did take me 4 towns to get there. So I can't say it's been a straight line of a journey, but I really love where I'm ending up with both companies. And we'll talk about that later too, but we are doing a raise now with Green Alchemy too. And that's the other last step to get this all across the line.
Yeah, that's amazing. So how did you figure out or get introduced to extracting 15 years ago? I mean, that's so early on.
Oh my God. So what's interesting is, so when I got the Spencer Gifts account, I did not solicit them. They came to me, which was shocking. I was at a conference at Atlantic City and they came to my booth and I didn't know who they were. It was a team. And I just started, my blah, 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 as you do at a booth. And they said, stop, we know who you are. We want your product. And I was like, oh my God. So it was literally that easy when people say how you get in. But really, I think the answer of how I got in, which is still stands today, is just good promotion. And I was one of the first videos on the internet of how to extract cannabis. And I made this YouTube video, terrible, terrible, like don't take any of the advice if you dig it up, but it's like vegetable oil in a pan with like a metal spoon on a simmer. It's very bad. But it was me at that point scouring like early forums. This was like 2009, so 15 years ago. Yeah, just trying to dig up any information on the internet that I could about how to do extraction. Yeah, reading High Times articles, like whatever kind of underground people I could talk to. And then really having friends be my test panel in this like highly illegal market. I was printing up like survey sheets where I'd be like, okay, make sure you have like a clean palate, don't consume anything else. What is your time to onset of effects? Rate them 1 to 10. What other, like I really tried to make it as formal as possible. So it was just feeling it all out. And people today have such an advantage. There's just 4 million videos on how to make it with beautiful, all different methods and calculators and just I mean the expertise out there is unbelievable now. But yeah, back then it was just a lot of trial and error.
So basically you were decarboxylating cannabis and putting it in an oil to mix it into, is that basically you weren't
Yep.
actually
Yep, easy
processing?
peasy. No, no, no. Yeah, no, I had no equipment. I
Yeah.
was just yeah, doing regular kitchen producer. And then through the years I did teach myself commercial, well, I didn't teach myself commercial production. I traveled to California and Colorado. I took some certification courses where I went into a lab and learned how to do butane and CO2 and ethanol. So I went around to these different companies and just spent some time out there learning hands-on, which I never wanted to move to either of those places, although I did consider it a lot. And
Mhm.
sometimes I think if I had set up post 10 years ago in a different state, where would the company be now? But I did choose to stay loyal to Jersey and wait to launch here for good or bad, however that decision works out. But I did get a lot of knowledge through the years and go out a lot for training on a commercial level.
So what products are you planning to launch into the market?
Sure. So mainly going to be focusing on extracts and edibles. So, but not just like plain extracts in a jar. I'm talking disposables and carts. And in-house, we're going to be doing solventless rosin and
I just
live
wanted to ask
rosin.
you that. Oh, you're going to do solventless rosin? Oh, excellent. That's great.
Yeah, I feel like that's a really big hole in the market. We are just being flooded in a sea of distillate. And of course, that has its place, especially with some third-party manufacturing and also affordable edibles. I have to have a portfolio. I can't just be like all in on something that's expensive because then I cut people out of my market. But I am really passionate about rosin because just as I get older, I'm focusing more on like start cutting like food dyes out of my diet and stuff. So not having those residual solvents, having whole plant medicine, it's just really appealing to me. And we don't have a ton of that here. And I do think that's one of the things that's still driving the legacy market. Where now that, as you said, we have over 100 dispensaries, they're craving diverse product. We have a lot of MSO product. It's very similar. It's generally, if I look online, I try to follow what consumers are saying. It's generally not the best reviewed product. And I think the things that are now hitting the market that are higher quality are wildly prohibitive in price. We have some of the most expensive cannabis in the country. And while that makes us a desirable market, and I see out of state people coming in and being like, oh, it's the hottest market in the country. We want to be here. Everything's so expensive. I'm like, so we
It's
brag
not,
about this? Yeah. Up until recently, I imagine we didn't have independently owned dispensaries. Most of our businesses in New Jersey were MSOs, which nothing against MSOs. I think we need everything in a market. That's the literal definition of diversity, is to have, Home Depot and Lowe's, but what if you just want to run to the local hardware store down the street? We
yeah.
didn't have that. So until we had all people represented, people I fought with in advocacy, people who I know had been in the organization and invested their
Mm.
life savings and their time. I needed to see these people represented in the market before I felt I could, your dollar is your strongest vote at the end of the day. We're in a capitalist society, and that's what people respond to. So I just made my first legal purchase a couple months ago. But since then now, I'm like, okay, the only way my product is going to be the best on the market is if I try everything on the market.
Yeah,
So yeah, so I've been buying all the things. And yes, some of them are wildly expensive. And I'm like, I cannot believe I just spent this on something I could make.
I
But
know, I know, I
but
know.
I gotta see what's out there, and I gotta be able to come informed if people say, why is your product better than this? Or what do you think of this? I need to know what we have out there. So yeah, no, I got it. It is expensive, and the way we're gonna get people to convert is by making good products at an affordable price that can compete with, the other market. And not just that, but even the gray market. People are, worried about that. And I'm not, because I think, when we're talking about the deltas and things like that,
Oh,
I had a dispensary owner come up to me and she was so worried, and she's a great girl. I love her. I know she's gonna do amazing. But she was so worried about like Delta 8 and Delta 9. She's like, what about the gas stations? I was like, look, there's some people who will buy pizza at a gas station.
yes,
And
exactly.
then there's people who want like good, nice brick oven with a
Yeah, exactly. Good point.
you have a better product. You have a regulated, tested, beautiful store. Like there's going to be a market for that. And, I don't fear competition, but I do want to make sure that I can back up. Yes, you should go these dispensaries. And I think so a big problem, I think you mentioned supply chain
Mhm.
is coming from the top down. As a manufacturer, I decided against the cultivation license, hoping I don't regret that, because I do feel like, there is always in every market a bit of a crash, because when the price of flower comes down, there's nothing proprietary about a plant. It's a commodity. So I really put my stock and my energy into creating a brand I feel that has more value and just more interesting to me. But the cultivation is lagging a bit behind. So now I can only get a product so good from the source material. So until we get like a device, I want craft cannabis. I want, almost like in the craft beer industry, and I want to, more so than that, be able to have bespoke strains where I say, look, this is what I'm trying to accomplish. And almost like a wine pairing. I
I
wanted,
was just gonna, that was one of my big questions. I'm so all about I believe the future of edibles and drinks is strain-based products. I
Mhm.
mean, it's craft,
Yeah,
but the West Coast is doing some great stuff in just like terp tonics, but strain-based drinks, which I've actually tasted a few, and I like the flavor. It's just a different flavor, but if you're a cannabis consumer and you love that whole aroma and everything. So, but I did want to ask you about that. So you are wanting to do strain specific products in the future? Is that what you're thinking, or just the effects part?
no, absolutely strain specific and cannabis derived, like I was saying, live rosin. A lot of what you see on the market right now is just distillate with, some have cannabis derived terpenes, but it's largely just botanically derived or artificial terpenes. Which when you're dissecting it and re-putting it together like that, there's other elements aside from that. You're never going to get the same entourage effect that you would if you just squish the plant and use that.
Yeah.
So that said, making a replicable product will depend on, yes, having access to consistent strains where I can say, okay, I am making this with this flavor pairing. And aside from that, I'm also adding these supplements. Like you'll see right now, a lot of people are doing their nighttime gummies with like a CBN and a melatonin or something like that. So now if I'm pairing a good strain where I'm not adding external cannabinoids, but I'm actually taking a profile and then pairing it with a flavor, pairing it with a supplement. Now I'm talking about making a product that can target an effect for a consumer more than like I've put distillate in a gummy bear, here you go. So
Yeah.
that's really what's of interest to me and what I want to do. And that will require good relationships with talented growers. But I do think we're just a little bit shy of that. And I think we're going to see an explosion of that soon, which is really the relationships I'm trying to build right now.
Mhm.
What's interesting about my facility, and this should be good, I'm sharing the floor with another manufacturer. So it's a multi-story building.
Yes, I know them. I
Yeah,
think I had told you this. It's
yes,
the guys
they
from
were on
Munib,
a
Gras,
grad.
Gras.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, it's
So
Gras. Yeah.
is there some French way to say it?
It's,
Rossi?
I think it's, oh, is it Grassy? I thought it was Gras. I don't know.
I don't know. I
I don't
know.
know. But anyway,
I
GRA.
will know when I share a floor with them for years.
Yeah, I bet their stuff is great.
Yes, I haven't tried it yet. I will soon, but I have checked out their branding and everything. It looks really cool. I love their story. So yes, we are sharing a floor, which is super exciting. And then the floor below us is a cultivator. So and
Oh.
then one block over is another 30,000 square foot cultivator. So we have this little like cannabis microcosm in this town that's been super supportive. And oh, so to get back to my hometown thing, because I love this. I'm so proud of this, and I would love to see more of this. The street I grew up on is in an industrial area. I'm from a very working class town. And it also is right on the Raritan River. So five of my family members, including the house I grew up in, were all our homes were destroyed by Irene, rebuilt, redestroyed by Sandy. And then because it's not like one of these tourism towns where people are like, oh, we must rebuild. It's just a small town. So basically FEMA came in and they just said, this is not livable land anymore. Y'all gotta go. So they either bought out the house, they said you could raise it, which no one did, and they've basically just leveled most of the area. And then it's, it's become condemned and graffiti, and it's just the whole thing's fallen into disrepair. So for my factory, I could see those 5 lots of land. And I now all this cannabis revenue, state regulated, we have 2% of everything we make, top line revenue, goes back to the municipality. So now through cannabis, which has been my life's work, I have an opportunity to rebuild the street I grew up on and turn it into, I know, right?
I have goosebumps. Oh my God, that's such a great story.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm so happy. It's like this full circle journey. I feel like I'm exactly where I need to be. And even already at council meetings, like they were talking about just putting like street trees on. And someone was like, why do you care about this in this area? And they were like, yeah, but think of what it could be. And that's what it is now. So I get to see this area and say, oh, like we could do something that matters here with this money too.
So I know New Jersey just approved baked goods. Are you planning on jumping into that at all since you have the brownie mix or?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So I'm not doing that as my first product because I want to just get something simple on the shelves that the CRC has a comfortability level with, and then I can start to form my relationship so they get comfortable with me and making sure I submit all my testing and my packaging and this and that. And I feel like my quickest path to market is to just get that in a row. So it will probably start with something simple, gummy, chocolate, vape cart, that type of thing.
Oh, so
Um,
you're gonna do chocolates as well?
yes. So
Okay.
gummies and chocolates, the same depositor. It's very simple, same molds. So we can get a product on shelves. Make it a little innovative. I mean, there'll be some twists and like I said, I want to formulate and it's not just gonna look like every other product out there. But aside from that, before I really start getting creative, because I've done so many things through the years. One of the things I do is I make cotton candy that's infused with water soluble cannabis. So I go to events around the state and I put them on blinking LED glow sticks.
Ah,
So yeah, if people go on my social media, there's one on my
oh,
you could see, yeah, so I'm swirling it and it's this blinking bulb of infused cotton candy. So I've done so, like I went to a clam fest and did a clam of butter. Like I love
oh,
infusing weird things. So
that's fantastic. I love that.
so I can't wait to get super creative and just bring products that have never been in this market and some that have never been in any market. So
Yeah.
that's all coming down the line. But like I said, I want to start small and get comfortable and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little skeptical about the baked goods in cannabis because it's so tricky. They can dry out so quickly in the shelf life. And I'm just wondering how that's going to work as far as I feel like that would be down the road when we can get consumption lounges if that ever gets married. That's, so far down the road.
Through Green Alchemy, Blazin Bakery products will not be the only thing that's being produced. I'm in talks with some very large brands, national names I can't say, but that you would recognize. But then also what I'm really passionate about is giving opportunity to people who couldn't get their own license, didn't have the time, the money, the desire, but still would love to bring a product to market. So, and especially like young entrepreneurs, as I get older, I'm having this like weird urge to mentor people. So, but
No, it's nice. I love it too. Yeah.
yeah, so I want to take people in. I have so much knowledge to help them shape their edibles lines and things I wish I had someone helping me with when I was young. Not that I'm old, but
Yeah, yeah, but no, I know what you mean. Yeah.
younger. But yeah, so I want to have a portfolio of brands where I could approach a dispensary and say, okay, well, yes, there may be some holes to fill with Blazin Bakery products, but I also have all these young, fresh entrepreneurs with all these cool ideas, and we're making their products too. So really just be able to I want to help redefine the market, just what it looks like in product offering, ownership, diversity, everything. Yeah.
And I mean, I'm always looking at the West Coast and see what's coming our way, because they're just innovating. Like I said, I was writing a lot about strain-based beverages and products, but so I was kind of exploring that out there, and I thought we're not even touching that here. It's not even we're not even talking about it because, like you said, we're at the point of we're above distillate gummies. I mean, in New York now where I'm based, there's definitely the rosin products are starting to come up. You see the brands popping up because I thought, oh, is everybody just going to do distillate? But now you see that coming into our market.
I've
So
bought 3 different rosin. I'm not just trying. I mean, I've tried products around the country for many years, but right now I have to know what's in my market near me. And
yeah,
certainly I have to consider New York as well, because I mean, I'm in the city all the time. I know most people in New Jersey, you got it for business here and there. So
yeah.
yeah, MFMY is doing a rosin product off hours. Of course, some of the major brands, Kiva, they've had so there are some rosin products in New York. They are much more affordable. One thing that I'm curious about is New York does at least make people say the extraction method, which is a lot more disclosure than New Jersey does. We don't have to say how something was extracted. So if you see that the only extraction method on there is solventless, then that's not cut with anything. But if you can't see that, you can just put a drop of rosin and then the rest is distillate. Or are you just saying these are live terpenes and without the amount of disclosure? But I mean, things like this always come to the top of how much is actually what it says is on the label, because there's not and it doesn't need to be. I'm not saying there needs to be more regulation, more labeling. It's fine. But
Yeah.
you'll know by when you eat products, when you consume it. If it doesn't do what it should do for what it says on the package, you'll know, and then you just won't purchase that a second time. And that's fine. But yeah, so New York definitely has more product variety. Some of them are very affordable price points. I I mean, it's a matter of time. Jersey's going to move towards that, which I welcome.
So I guess what are the challenges that you're facing in starting, either try to get into dispensaries? Are there a lot of brands in New Jersey? Do you feel like the competition is starting to heat up, like trying to get the attention of buyers? Or I mean, I guess you're not really approaching them yet because you don't really have product out yet, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I am starting to put out vendor agreements to, start having shelf space. One thing that is interesting is there are still some dispensaries who are going with a very homegrown approach and just being like, this is where I want to feature, woman-owned brands. This is where I want my social equity brands. This is, and they're just having an organic approach. And then there's some dispensaries I'm already walking into and they're like, this section costs this much. This section costs this much. An MSO has bought this section. If you want that, like, so then you're like, oh, like I have to pay to have good shelf space in those. So, and I don't begrudge them that. I know the margins on dispensaries are super small. And sometimes, especially right now, everything's expensive. We're getting off of our feet. But yeah, so I do think I will have a lot of really great opportunity in dispensaries as a whole, just from having a reputation, and just I know so many of them personally. And the ones that I don't, I do feel like there's people to vouch for me, or just my experience and products should speak for themselves. Definitely getting into the MSOs, I think, might be more of a challenge, because a lot of them are, the decision makers are more on a national level, not people I speak with. They have so much of their own vertically integrated. They have, licensing deals, or, their own portfolio. So certainly, cracking that is more of a challenge, but not one that I'm wildly concerned about, because even without that, now we do have such a nice, like, rich market of independence, and more opening every day, that there's going to be plenty of opportunity for shelf space just with independent dispensaries, if that was where I landed. So I hope it's not. So yeah, and I feel like I have good brand recognition too. Now people, it was funny, for years I would say name a cannabis brand, and people in Jersey could not. And then slowly people would be like, right, cookies. And now people can. They'll be like, oh, cookies, wanna this, like, but for a long time, I was one of the only brands that anyone knew at all. So I know I have a lot of great legacy brand recognition. And I think that will get me into a dispensary once, and that will get me into a consumer's purchase once. And then after that, it's my responsibility to make sure that product lives up to that brand, so they will continue to buy it. So that's how I feel.
So, yeah, it'll be interesting. So are you also thinking of, expanding your product line down the road to maybe include beverages also? Is that something, like the enhancers? I'm such a fan of the beverage enhancers.
Yeah.
It's the condensed version that you can just add to a drink, or the powder version. I just had a sample of one the other day I loved.
I think the powder is a definite. I definitely would love a nano mouse powder product. I'd say one thing, dealing with brownie mix and 1 pound bags for a long time, is that heavy things are harder to just deal with. So
Yeah.
if I'm shipping you 1,000 vape carts versus 1,000 cans, that's an entirely different distribution issue. So I do get leery of things that are too big and too heavy just for logistics.
And
Not as
cost
what?
cost of shipping is just so expensive.
Yeah, which, I mean, I can't put them in the US mail anyway.
Right, you'd have to, right,
Yeah.
yeah, right, they would
But
have to be
so
delivered.
it's less of a concern, but also, so the particularly canned beverages, I've had a lot of people in state and out of state say they want to make a beverage. It's a really hot market. It's a big growth sector right now. So I would like to accommodate that. That said, it's a big upfront investment for canning equipment. So
Mhm.
what I've said to people, without looking at too much, they're like, oh, it's about 250,000. I said, okay, if I get 10 people and you each put up 25 grand, you guys all go in on the equipment. And I probably have about 10 people now. So if that comes to, then I'm going to say, all right, if you guys are serious and you all want in the Jersey market, let's timeshare this equipment and you can all produce your beverages here. So I think that's probably something I'll end up doing. It's not necessary. I mean, if I have the equipment, maybe there'll be a Blazin Beverage at some point, but right now I think the powder is definitely more appealing to me. I think that's more fun. I'm all about discrete ways to consume too. That is something that I mean, it appeals to everyone, but I know it's especially appealing to women, because smell, especially people who are mothers or working, just having
Yeah,
something in your purse, something that, without that stigma. So I like discrete products, but beverages are fun too. It's one thing that helps normalize. I always say it's not normalized until you can just randomly pick up a cannabis gift on the drive to someone's house, the way you'd be like, oh my God, I forgot to get a gift. Let's grab a bottle of wine. I want
yeah.
that normal, where you could just
So
bring.
do, oh, don't we all, right? But we're kind of wrapping up here. What advice would you give someone who would be coming to you, seeking extraction services? Like, some good, like, don't come to me unless, or, this is what you really need to have together before you come see me kind of thing.
Sure. And I just did again, a friend, someone who I'm not charging for. I've actually fired all the people, not fired, but I stopped supporting my clients who I was consulting for just because I didn't have the time to give, even though they were paying me quite well. It was just like I have to devote time to my own business. But I did a free call for a family friend last night because she wants to get her edibles line off the ground. So I said, okay, bring your team on, let's hop on a call. And yeah, so I just broke this all down for a couple young
Oh,
entrepreneurs last night. I told them you gotta get your trademark done. I told them you need to download 1730, which is our cannabis regulations, and you need to look at the packaging page and you need to get that done. You need to have your logo. You need to look at child proofing. You need to get your social media pages up. You need to look at what you're going to need for your recipe formulations. You need to have your website done. And I basically just ran them through, first obviously found the LLC, get a good cannabis accountant and bookkeeper. There's many, many pieces before you even get out a bag of sugar to make a product.
right.
Um, and then also if you're not educated to begin with, let's say you weren't following the discussion when we're talking about rosin and distillate and terpenes and this and that. If you don't have that vocabulary ready, then that's the very first thing. And there's so much training out there now, but even just a YouTube education. So yeah, getting your basic business ducks in a row, learning your cannabis knowledge, and then experimentation, because you can read something a million times and it's never going to learn as much as the first time you actually do it. So just try to, don't blow up your kitchen. Don't go do a butane sit up in your living room, but
Right.
using things safely and appropriately, doing your research to get your hands dirty as soon as possible.
And what's the risk on your side if you choose, like what could go wrong on your side if you chose someone that, to work with, to launch their product? Um,
Yeah, well, I have a lot of control over what will be going on. Like, well, first off, just state mandate everything. If I say source distillate, it's coming in already with a metric label, tracking it, seed to sale, and I'm already going to have it tested. So I'm going to know that it's, free of contaminants and also what the potency is. And then we're going to make a product with that. And same if I extract it in-house, same procedures. And then once that product exists, that's going to be lab tested as well. So it's not like people are going to be able to just pull some, distillate they bought off the dark web and throw it in products and sell them out my back door.
Mhm.
Aside from that, the security at our place is insane. What I love that because it is such a cannabis building that we ended up creating, you need to be badged just to get to our floor. It's a complete cannabis floor. And then the second you get off the elevator, security guard. So it's not someplace that's just gonna have a casual security. I mean, we're 3 floors up and you're not getting there, and you're definitely not getting into one of our facilities without, and there's cameras everywhere.
Yeah.
So I think we are doing everything to prophylactically prevent any kind of getting ourselves in trouble. That said, people are very creative, and
Mhm.
yes, there's always liability when you're working with third parties. You can have as much control as you want, but at the end of the day, that's why cannabis lawyers are doing so extremely well, is sitting down with them and constantly make sure I'm insulating myself and protecting myself from this. And if there does end up being a bad actor in our portfolio, just, pulling it back, doing damage control. If it's, we have protocols for product recall, if it's mending relationship with vendors, whatever it takes. I mean, I've been in this so long and there's always problems. You wake up and there's always a fire to put out. There's always someone who wants to sue you or destroy you or whatever. It's another day at the office. So
Yeah, yeah,
we'll figure it
yeah.
out.
Right, right, right. Um, and then are there restrictions of the New Jersey cannabis laws? Do they restrict you from like producing only so much extraction, oil extraction or product or biomass coming in? How do they like can you just manufacture as much as you want? I think we have restrictions in New York.
So there's tiers. There is a micro, which is 1,000 pounds or less a month, which is my classification. And then there is up to 10,000 pounds, and then there's over. So there's 3 tiers for manufacturing. Cultivation has more tiers. I am looking to start as a micro because just with this small scale rollout, like we're talking about, there's not a ton of cultivators online. It's about 100 dispensaries. I don't think realistically I'm processing more than 1,000 pounds a month in the next year. But so that said, after 1 year operational as micro, if you can show proof that you need to expand, that you have, I guess, the customer base, the desire, the room, which is what we plan to do after a year, apply to go to that next tier. So something interesting I'm doing to accomplish that is I have the space next to me, which I'm also renting. So in between us and grass, there's this like empty space that she's like, I was like, what am I going to do with this? I said, you know what? I'll rent it for my other company. And what we're going to do is make it a cannabis co-working space. So I'm calling it Alchemix. It's like the annex of Green Alchemy. And I want it to be not a consumption lounge, nothing like that. I want it to be a real cannabis think tank. Because as an entrepreneur, and I don't know, maybe you felt this sometimes, I feel very isolated from my industry. Like I go to networking events and it's great, but then I go back home and I'm at my desk. And, you know, especially when we were all going through this application process, and I was like, man, it'd be great if there was someone across the table. I could be like, hey, this regulation, or what they said this meeting, or
Yeah.
so that's what I want, like a space for cannabis professionals to network and support each other and have a safe space where like I've had to rent out conference rooms or run around the state. Like, all right, I want to pitch to this investor and I have this awesome cannabis space. So it's a monthly fee, it's a membership, and then you can rent by the hour. So, and then when I want to expand my license, no more cannabis think tank and
Yeah, I see. Okay. Okay, great. Yeah. Okay.
or I mean, maybe if it's doing well, we'll move it somewhere else. But I am gonna have the potential to expand when the market needs it, which is good.
Great. And then, so as far as, I know that you're also fundraising, so maybe we can close on that and tell us about what your goals are and where people uh, can,
Sure. So
it's a crowdfunding site, I believe, right? Yeah.
yeah, so I'm doing it's Reg CF, it's SEC regulated crowdfunding, which is an amazing opportunity that has not been open to cannabis up until recently. Mainvest is one of the only platforms that has taken a risk on that. And within the cannabis offerings on Mainvest, I am the only one currently, I believe, doing an equity offering, which to navigate this with CRC regulations and all the massive cannabis regulations to be able to offer equity at a national level. It's really unprecedented. And I don't think people understand how the wealth disparity is really affected at an early stage investor level. Because if, say, you had $5,000 and you want to invest in my license, which, as we know, these are hard to get. Most people get cut out. It's not something you can just sign up for. If you don't make $200,000 a year annually or have a net worth of $1 million, you are not an accredited investor. And so what the government does to protect these people is you're not allowed to invest in businesses. So you're cut out from early stage small investments. What Reg CF did is amazing, is it gives people the opportunity to invest early stage, because in cannabis, by the time the company's IPO, like the real money's been made. There's very few public cannabis companies, and the ones that are, like the people who really got in early were a very long time ago. So this very unique offering is giving people the chance to invest in Green Alchemy, own part of a state licensed New Jersey cannabis product manufacturing facility. It's a very rare opportunity. It's something I'm very excited about. Without going too into it, I've had so many bad experiences with investors. To the point of actually it ended with a sexual assault at some point. Like
What?
yeah, it got really, really bad.
You
So
hear these stories so
yeah, oh my
often.
God, I have a million of them.
Unbelievable.
So, and that's not to say that taking investor money, anything wrong with it, but it's just to constantly be putting yourself in that position is frustrating because it's hit or miss. You meet some really nice people, but then you meet some people who aren't so nice, and it's just a frustrating position where I feel like by opening it up in this way, I am really putting it in the hands of people who are passionate about cannabis, who say like, oh, I found this because I was listening to a cannabis podcast, or, you know,
Mhm.
because I saw Tara at a conference or something like that. You're being driven to support something, not just from a financial sense, but really because they're passionate about it. So the investment starts at $500. So it's really not prohibitive to most people, if you did want to try to get in on it. And then I enjoy that reciprocally, because now if I am at a conference and someone says, hey, I tried your product at a dispensary. Here's what I don't love about it. Oh, by the way, I invested, so I own part of your company, and now you need to listen to me. I would have listened to you anyway, but
Yeah.
it's kind of cool to think that I could have this like base of supporters in New Jersey who really do have a vested interest in my success, because it's our success, instead of just one or two wealthy people who I, you know, I answer to. But now I could potentially have 100 or a couple hundred people who own Blazin Bakery, or not Blazin Bakery, Green Alchemy. But yeah.
So when they invest the $500, then how does that work? Do they get money in return? Is it dividends or?
So the only thing I'm not, per SEC regulations, I can't speak about the specifics of the deal on like a
Okay.
public platform. I can talk about the minimum investment, and
Okay.
that they can then go to mainvest.com, mainvest.com. And that offering will be available until May 31st, which I was hoping for it to go much longer, but for whatever reason, Mainvest, with some of its previous support of cannabis companies, they probably will have to end it early. So I'm trying to raise the total a little bit sooner, finishing than I thought. So it is a very limited time opportunity. After that, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to open it up to the average person anymore. But if you want to go to sellreallyhigh.com, that is a website I own. So the link to the Mainvest campaign is there. And if there are future offerings, there's a email list you can subscribe to, or just anything you want to keep up with investment opportunities. That would be on sellreallyhigh.com. Additionally, you can learn more about the company. Blazinbakery.com is the product website. All our social media is at Blazin Bakery, or if you want to connect with me personally, you can do at I am Tara Misu. That's IAMTARAMISU. And I'm also, if you guys, anyone who wants to invest, I'm so happy to answer anything and everything. I'm super passionate about this and so excited. And thank you, Pam, for giving me this opportunity to tell people about it. This was great.